So this is a presentation that I recently gave to a group of nursing students at a convention, and I thought I would record it and throw it up here because even when I'm tutoring, even first semester students, I get a lot of questions about that first year of nursing and kind of going from being a nursing student to being a nurse on the floor. So um, if you don't know, my name is Stacy. I'm a neuro ICU nurse in St. Louis, and I also tutor nursing classes at St. Louis Community College Merrimack campus. And I'm going to walk you through my experience and some other nurses' experiences on I passed the NCLEX, now what? So the weirdest part for me was the downtime between passing the NCLEX and actually starting as a nurse. I had some shifts where I was still working as a tech, even though I was technically a licensed nurse. And keep in mind that if you are not working as a nurse, you cannot do nurse tasks still. Protect your license. So these are my do's and don'ts for that downtime. Do take the time to look into other areas of nursing, ones that students aren't going into right out of nursing school. Community health, forensic nursing, case management, diabetic educator, stroke educator, um, being a nursing educator in general. These are things that you could get into 6 months plus into your career that people don't necessarily realize are out there. Don't go in with blinders. Don't go in saying, I am going to be this type of nurse, and that is it. I did have a nurse on my unit who did that, and long story short, she's no longer a nurse, not only on that unit or not in that hospital and not for that hospital group. So just don't go in with blinders on. Use your network. If you aren't on LinkedIn, get on LinkedIn, stay in contact with the people from nursing school. If you have been a CNA or an LPN or worked in healthcare in general before nursing school, make sure you stay in contact with these people because you might need them in the future to help you get into a position, or they might need you. So stay in contact. Don't stop the communication. Um, don't spread yourself too thin by saying, I am going to make up for the last 2 to 4 years and I'm going to do every single thing that I missed out on. Because then you're just going to go into your nursing job already excited. Don't spend hours a day studying before your job. You will learn the things that you need to know and will have refreshers during your residency, especially if you are in an amazing, well developed program like I was part of. I had amazing educators telling me literally everything I needed to know. Do start finding your young nurse family. So, this is nurses who are a year or two ahead of you, nurses from your graduation class, and nurses that are a year or two behind you. Because let me tell you, your non healthcare spouse, partner, roommates, family, they don't want to know about the giant necrotic wound that's big enough for you to stick your fist in. But your nurse family, that's something that they would probably think is cool and want to hear about. Get some much needed R&R. I took a trip. I did a bunch of self-care. I dyed my hair pink. I got a piercing I had been wanting for a long time. I made sure to have lunch with some of my nursing school friends to stay in contact. Um, don't be hard on yourself. Be kind. Don't freak out and spiral. Practice being an advocate. Practice being an advocate for yourself, saying no. Um, Doing what you need to do to get some rest and do some self-care. If you can advocate for yourself, you can advocate for your patients. my experience is that is the hardest thing for people who don't have a background in healthcare, especially to do coming in. Um, I will advocate the crap out of anybody for my patients. I don't care who you are. If my patient needs it, I'm going to stand my ground and I am going to give you all of the reasons why my patient needs that. And don't let others dictate where you land. If you don't have a job lined up, don't let people tell you that you have to start out in med surg. If you're an LPN, don't let them tell you you have to start out in a doctor's office or you have to start out in a nursing home. It is 2023. The entire world is short nurses. You can go wherever you want. OR, ER, ICU, cath lab, GI lab. A lot of hospital systems are opening up these jobs to new grads and to LPNs that have not previously been available to them because, again, we're short nurses and we need people to do the job. So I surveyed a bunch of nurses I work with, nurses I went to school with, nurse friends and family that have been nurses for a long time, asking them how they felt their first day. And these are some of the answers I got, and you will see a pattern. Terrified yet excited, felt lost, overwhelmed, and like I had made a mistake. I had a huge sense of imposter syndrome. That's our brain telling us, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't belong here. And it's only a matter of time until everybody else realizes I don't know what I'm doing and I don't belong here. Multiple people told me that they were excited to learn, yet terrified that they wouldn't learn enough in order to be able to do their job. Terrified, felt like I had made a huge mistake. Exhausted. That was somebody who didn't spend enough time doing self-care, resting, and relaxing, right? Nervous, but comfortable with my preceptor by my side. Anxious, 100% felt like I knew nothing. So you see the common theme there. A lot of people were terrified and felt like they didn't know anything. And I'm going to tell you now what you're expected to know setting foot on your unit for the first time. You're expected to know how to ask for help, who to ask for help, how to learn from your mistakes, how to admit when you don't know something, basic A&P, and basic clinical skills. That is it. I promise you, if you go in knowing these 6 things, you are going to be golden. If you have a solid head to toe assessment, knowing what all of the normals are, you are golden. Orientation. This varies depending on the type of job you have. It can last anywhere from a few weeks if you are going to, say, a doctor's office to 6 months if you're going to like the OR. It is one-on-one with an experienced nurse. If you're going to a doctor's office, it could also be an experienced medical assistant. You'll slowly take over providing all care for an entire team until you're completely on your own. Learn everything you can and soak up the knowledge from those around you. Create learning opportunities. This is when I volunteer people that I am doing things for them that are things that maybe I need more practice on, like starting IVs, or like maybe I haven't seen. So, and on top of like volunteering people, like I'm going to do their IVs or, certain things for them, I would go to the nurses on either side of me, say, hi, my name is Stacy. I am a new grad. And I would love it if you could let me know if you have anything unusual going on with your patients, anything that maybe I won't see very frequently. I would love that. And let me tell you, every single time the nurses did let me know. And I learned so much by doing that. And I feel like that's one of the reasons why I got comfortable in my position so early, is because I didn't just have my 2 patients. I also had the patients of the nurses on both sides of me, showing me interesting things or things that maybe you might only see like once a year, maybe less. And respond to rapids and codes while you're in your orientation if you can. And the reasoning for this is the most experienced nurses in the hospital respond to these. So you are going to see nurses with a lot of experience and how they work in an emergent situation. And you might possibly also be able to participate, especially in a code blue. They always need people to do compression since we switch out every 2 minutes. Be honest with yourself, your preceptor, your manager, and your educator. The biggest thing is communicating. Maybe something's not working out. Maybe you just need another preceptor because maybe you guys have completely different styles. Um, but as long as you are communicating things, typically accommodations can be made. And most of all, it's your orientation and it is what you make of it. So if you are in orientation and you realize this is not for me, first of all, do some soul searching. Talk to your educator and your manager. Again, open communication is always going to be your best bet. Look and see what your facility's transfer policy is, if especially if there's multiple offices, multiple hospitals, multiple units that you could potentially transfer to. And shadow other areas and specialties. I've never had a manager tell me no when I've asked to shadow, or when I have contacted them on behalf of a student and asked for a shadow. So what you don't want to do is just leave. That's abandonment of care. That's a really good way to lose your license that you just worked your butt off to get. And don't shut down and stop communicating. So my first year working in healthcare, I was a tech at a small community hospital, and a new grad literally ran off the unit crying and left. She didn't tell anybody she was leaving. She literally just ran to the elevator crying and left. And let me tell you, she did not come back to a job. Then another young lady that I know, she realized that ICU was not for her. She did not like the constant codes, and high level of care was just not for her. She couldn't handle the death that we see. But she communicated this to her manager and to our educator and her preceptor, and they found her a spot on another unit in the same hospital, and she is absolutely thriving there. So even though she had not reached the transfer time as dictated by the policy, because she communicated and let people know what was going on and why this wasn't a good fit for her, of course they worked with her. Of course they did. She had just spent a bunch of weeks in new grad class and a bunch of weeks in the ICU. Do you think that a floor would not be pumped to have somebody that has all that experience? Absolutely, they would. So if you communicate with people, sometimes exceptions can be made. And I spent my entire first year telling everybody, but I'm just a baby. So I came into nursing with 5 years of healthcare experience as a tech, a student nurse, and a medical assistant. And I also have a master's degree in management. So not quite the typical new grad. But even my friends who are typical new grads, this has still been their experience. So your first shift in weeks on your own, know who your resources are and don't be afraid to ask for help. Just because you are no longer with a preceptor does not mean that you don't get help. Everybody gets help. Hopefully you are on a unit or in an office where it is a true teamwork mentality and everybody helps everybody. I am less than a year into nursing now, and I am a preceptor. The first time I had someone shadow me was a few weeks after being on my own, because I had a very sick patient on a bunch of drips, and the very experienced nurse shadowing me just needed to learn how to titrate drips. The first time you are charged, that was about, for me, it was about 6 months after I was licensed. I am charged a good bit now, not all the time. Um, but I got very good advice from one of my instructors who told me, Stacy, you're going to be in charge early. Just be prepared for it and know that it's going to happen. And you're going to be prepared for it because you're going to ask for training. So I did this because I looked ahead at the schedule and saw that there were certain dates coming up where I could potentially end up being in charge. So I did ask a very experienced charge nurse to train me and let me know what I needed to do as charge. I'm very thankful that I did it because I did not feel completely lost my first time being charged. And know who your resources are. I'm in the ICU. I let the rapid response team know when they made rounds, like, hey, I am a new nurse. I am in charge tonight. But if you guys could just be cognizant to the fact that, the unit might need some extra help tonight, that would be great. They came by and checked on us several times instead of just kind of like the one time they usually do. The charge nurse on the same floor said, hey, I know you're in charge. I got your back. Let me know if you need anything. And that was like relieved such a weight. So make sure people know that, hey, I'm a baby, but I am in charge. House supervisor, other charge nurses that that are in charge that night. And in my case, we have very experienced travelers on our unit who have been at my hospital for a year or more, and they had my back as well. So it was a very smooth night. Realize that you are still learning, especially if you go into a hard specialty, ICU, ER, OR, cath lab, GI lab. Realize that you are still learning and that it's okay to ask people when you don't know something. In fact, ask people when you don't know something. Don't just assume things. At the very least, look it up. Join organizations. I joined the Nurse Practice Council at my hospital. I also joined the critical care nurse organization. Also, take classes, get certifications. You're still learning, you're still in the learning mode. So, it's a great time to do that and acquire more knowledge. Anytime there is an in service that my schedule allows, I attend that in service and I have learned so much. How to insert a video guided Dobhoff, how to bridle an NG tube. Um, I took a super user class on wound vacs. I've taken classes on CRRT. I'm planning on taking a class on being a CRRT super user. As soon as you can, get certifications for your area of practice. So for example, I plan to take the CCRN exam as soon as I can here in a few months. And if you're an LPN, immediately start working on that RN. It opens up so many more job opportunities for you. If you are an RN, immediately start working on that BSN because, again, it opens up so many job opportunities, and education and is something that nobody can ever take away from you. Um, and I asked a bunch of nurses, what advice do they have for new grads, or what advice do they wish somebody had given to them when they were a new grad? And these come from nurses that are med-surg nurses, ER nurses, OR, ICU, they're clinical instructors, they're lecture instructors. They have been practicing anywhere from 6 months to over 30 years. And here's what they had to say: ask questions, find the knowledgeable, experienced nurse you can rely on, and ask questions. So, This is not necessarily the nurse who's been a nurse for 20 years and is like sitting on their phone all the time because they're just sitting there waiting for time to retire. Like, that's not the nurse, right? You ask the friendly, knowledgeable, experienced nurse that you can rely on. These are your preceptors, your charge nurses. That's who you ask your questions. Most importantly, learn from your mistakes. If you make a mistake, hopefully it's not a fatal one, and then you don't make it again, right? Because you have learned from your mistake. A girl who started out in the ICU and then moved to med surg said, get your organizational skills down ASAP. Attend conferences, read, be open to learning new things, and study. Be teachable. I had multiple preceptors and multiple nursing instructors tell me to tell new grads to be teachable. Most importantly, keep an open mind about everything, about how your shift is going to go, about learning new things and the type of patients you're going to see and meet. Keep an open mind. Pay attention and learn from what's going on around you. Get your hands dirty. This is like Valen telling people you're going to do things for them, or if you are not comfortable with that, your preceptor volunteering people you're going to do things for them. My poor nursing student, I volunteer people she's doing things for them all the time. Straight casts, NGs, blood draws, IVs, you name it, I'm making sure she's doing it. And protect your license at all costs. If you have any questions, you can scan the QR code that sends you to my About Me page, where there is LinkedIn, Instagram, and email, or drop me a comment in the comment section. If you're at STLCC, you know how to get a hold of me. Shoot me an email or a text. Good luck, guys.